Recording in progress.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yasodanandana Bhajajannaranjana Yasodanandana Bhajajannaranjana. If you're awake during the class, something to do during class. Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki jai, Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. All glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Gauranga Ranga, all glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pastachare Shatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Om Jnanatimandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Kuruna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Jai Granthara Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glorious to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are on this globe. We thank you for being with us this morning, devotees, and some of you, of course, would have taken part in the Transcendental Srila Prabhupada Book Marathon, which takes place during the month of December. And you may have heard, or you may not have heard, but here in France, we attempted to distribute some of Srila Prabhupada's books, mostly Bhagavad Gita as it is. And this year, despite the fact that our top book distributor from our previous 2 years was absent this year with an injury, still the devotees here did a tremendous sacrifice, yajna. We're here to perform yajna. Human life is meant as a life of sacrifice for giving. And sacrifice really means when we transform our consciousness away from what pleases me to what pleases Krishna, giving up our material desires for sense gratification, offering everything to Krishna, this sacrifice, surrender. And the yajna for the sage, the sacrifice for the sage, of course, is Sankirtan. Yajna Sankirtan Prayir Yatantihi Samedashaha. So this is a great month. One devotee was saying yesterday that you make as much advancement, I think Sri Ramaswamy, in 1 month of Sankirtan in December, one dedicate our lives to that yajna, as one does in the rest of the year. It's a great sacrifice. We make advancement, Krishna says, as we surrender unto me. Krishna, I reward. That means our advancement is depending on Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates with our degree of surrender. So this is a great opportunity to make that little extra effort to put aside, much as realistically, if you use our common sense, but as much as we can, putting aside necessities, what we consider necessities, not exactly necessities, but putting aside anything which isn't absolutely a necessity, let's say, and trying our best to dedicate ourselves to the distribution of Prabhupada's literature. Of course, this should be our general mood, not just 1 month a year, and not just with book distribution, but with any service. Our service may be daily worship, it may be looking after our family in a Krishna conscious way. It may be many other varieties of services which can be rendered unending type study and so many services. But in the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it means to give a cent% devotional service. Actual real devotional service is cent%. It's not just a percentage, but it's a coming to the point of cent%. We may not be at that platform, but we work towards it. At every single moment, every single cent, whichever way you look at cent, is for the pleasure of Krishna. Learning how to do everything for the pleasure of Krishna. So this is a marathon, really. It's whether we're consciously aware or not consciously aware, being engaged in what is termed as a marathon, which is basically a full endeavor, a full absorption in whatever one's objective is. In this case, the December time, generally speaking, is dedicated as much as possible to the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books all over the world. I don't know how many books were distributed. I don't know if anyone knows at this point, but many, many books, within the millions for sure. Many temples in India particularly, of course, were pledging like 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 Bhagavad Gitas each temple. So we can hardly imagine how it's possible within a month to distribute 500,000 Bhagavad Gitas. It's almost inconceivable. I don't know if they do, but these figures are phenomenal. Distribution of Prabhupada's books. Here in France, I don't know where you are, but in France, we endeavor to distribute 6,000 Gitas during the month of December, and by the sincere endeavors of the devotees and the mercy of Prabhupada and the Lord, we were able to exceed that. More or less 6,500 Gitas were distributed during the month of December, and this year we had 140 devotees participate, to smaller or greater degrees. Some one or two devotees will just do one small book or one magazine even. But that Krishna notes there sincerity. It's not necessarily the quantity only. Of course, it's nice to do a large number of Prabhupada's books, but he also notices our genuine sincerity, their desire to please, which is basically speaking what we're trying to cultivate. So he notices that. So we made that little effort this year, and we didn't quite make our points total. We were hoping to reach 16,108 book points. We fell a few hundred points short. Although we tried our level best on the last day, we didn't quite make it. But it was a sterling effort on behalf of all the devotees here, and some of those online today helped us in little ways to achieve that, let's say, whatever goal, whatever it would be. And in other countries, like I was online yesterday with the United Kingdom for their recap of their book marathon. I can't remember exactly how many big books Maha big books. I think they did about 60,000 Gitas in the UK, something like that. A lot of books and many devotees, and especially children taking part. Young children, I mean, that means anything, I suppose, up to what, I don't know, 15 or what, I don't know, but fairly young. We're distributing books, door to door, on the street, book tables, whatever they could do. And there is, even next year, they're hoping that the youth or the young ones, under 15 or under 16 or something, will organize the marathon, at least for the manor. So this is a great way to inspire our children, inspire the younger devotees in being a part, feeling a part of Srila Prabhupada's family, and being a part of, we can say, the mission which Srila Prabhupada has given us to spread Krishna consciousness. And everyone who takes part in this, especially in preaching activities, will experience a very unique realization within. One feels very closely sheltered at Prabhupada's lotus feet, at the lotus feet of all of our acharyas. We feel Nityananda's presence when we distribute books. It's a very special interaction or relationship which is developed because we're actually giving others the association of Srila Prabhupada. And not only that, as we read in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada says, we like to thank Narada Muni for very kindly appearing in the pages of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Prabhupada writes also in the Bhagavatam that if we hear this message attentively, we will see Krishna on the pages of this Srimad-Bhagavatam. That could apply to any of the transcendental literatures. They're all Bhagavatam in different ways. So in this way, we get that association, or we're offering. It may not happen immediately, but we're offering this gift, this greatest welfare gift to the people in general. We may be conscious or not, but one is an instrument, and as an instrument, Prabhupada said that anyone who sees the book, touches the book, reads a line, reads a word, whatever they do, comes in contact with these books, is eternally benefited. They get great benefit, as do those who distribute the books. Of course, they get extra special benefit from that. But even if unconsciously one's doing it, one gets tremendous benefit. It's the greatest service we can do for mankind. Others may be in the mode of goodness, trying to do activities to relieve the suffering of others or give them more pleasure in the material world. That may be their passion and goodness. But ultimately, it does not remove the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. Even if we solve the present pandemic, it doesn't solve the real problem. Everyone is still destined for birth, death, disease, and old age. The death rate is exactly the same as it was before. It's just a matter of which way we die. It's just a new way of dying. That's basically on a statistical level, you could say, maybe a little quicker in some cases. But death still looms behind everyone. People are still in the illusion, just like in the Bhagavatam we see in the past time where Narada Muni is preaching to King Prachini Barhishat, who was a little bit overboard in his materialistic endeavors, very much performing karma kandya yajnas for material achievements. He was very pious, but he was going too far in that direction. So Narada Muni was giving him a very vivid wake-up call. And at the end, when Narada Muni is explaining to the king the meaning of his allegorical preaching, one of the aspects is that the living entity is just like a deer in the forest, and deer are very attracted to fresh grass, and they become so much absorbed in the fresh grass that they forget, or let's say they become unaware of the fact that the hunter is creeping up on them. I don't know which way around it is. I think the tiger of time is creeping up on the hunter at one end and the tiger at the other are creeping up on them. Time and death, old age and death are creeping up. But we're so absorbed in sense gratification, so absorbed in trying to enjoy this material world around us that we try to put that aside. We do everything we can to try to avoid these realities. Prabhupada was listening and said we shouldn't be afraid of death. It's just a part of living in this material world, so to speak. But one who is on the bodily platform of life will definitely be afraid of death. So if we're afraid of death, which we may be, it means we're still influenced by the bodily platform of life. And how to come off that bodily platform of life. This is the process of devotional service. We have to hear and chant regularly from the Shastras. We have to hear and chant the holy name. We have to engage ourselves as much as we can in acts of devotion. And it doesn't just mean whimsical. It means under the direction of the pure devotee of the Lord. Activities which will bring pleasure to Krishna. Then he rewards us with fearlessness. by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, taking shelter of the lotus feet of the pure devotee, one can become fearless. Taking shelter of the holy name, just like in the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, it describes how we take shelter of the holy name, which is feared by fear personified. Take shelter of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. This is our protection. This is our cure. This is our vaccine to protect us from the deadly virus of material sense gratification and the consequent effects of lust and greed and anger and so on. This attachment to trying to be the enjoyer is countered by hearing and chanting from the right source, hearing from the right source the message, those who are actually freed of the desire for sense gratification. We have to hear this Gautama Shloka Gananavadat. We have to hear the message of Godhead from those who are Nivritta Trishna, those who are completely beyond material designation, beyond material affection, etc. And by hearing from them, this is the actual cure for our bondage in this material world, where we're bound to experience birth, death, disease, and old age, and the threefold miseries. Whether we're whoever we are, we can be a scientist, we can be a politician, we can be whatever it is, personality that we identify with, but everyone is subjected unavoidably to the effects of this material world under the influence of time. So to get free of the influence of time, we engage our time cent% in the service of Krishna. And then we're no longer, so to speak, under the control of time, because we're offering our time to Krishna. Time is a form of Krishna. When we see time as very valuable, our life is short. Time is most valuable. We can't, Janaka Pandit said, you cannot buy back 1 second of our lives. And we've all experienced that. Well, we look back sometimes, why did I do that? If only I could go back 1 minute or 1 hour or 1 day, everything would be different. I'm sure we've all had similar experiences to that during our lives, when we regret what we did earlier in the day or yesterday or sometime or not. We just wish that we could just do it again in a different way with knowledge. So we have to get knowledge. It's not just material knowledge of how to adjust to the material nature. Karma doesn't really allow us to go very far there anyway. But even if we were able, and we may certainly make endeavors to adjust to the material situation, but ultimately that doesn't save us either, because we're still in the material situation. So the process of hearing and chanting about Krishna, the transcendence, hearing and chanting about transcendence frees us from the material concept of life, or the material bondage in life, this false identity, because we start to identify ourselves with Krishna, in relationship with Krishna, instead of just in relationship with our body or others around us. We start to relate to Krishna. His transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes become our identity. It takes, obviously, time, and it actually only evolves in its real sense of the term when our consciousness is simultaneous, is purified from bodily designation. Sarva upadi vinirmuktam tat padatvena nirmalam. All these designations, sarva upadi means designation, sarva upadi vinirmuktam. One becomes freed from all designations. Tat padatvena nirmalam. The heart becomes cleansed. How Rishikena, Rishikesha Bhakti Seva Uchite. When we're fully engaged, Rishikena, when our senses are fully engaged in the service of Rishikesh, the master of the senses. So we have to engage our senses. It's not just about a matter of withdrawing them or restraining them, ignoring them. The mind, Manaksastani Indrini, Prakritistani Karshati, of these 6 senses which the living entity is struggling with. The mind is the most powerful, is very strong. And it's very hard, Arjuna says, it's impossible. To control this mind is more difficult than the raging wind. We had a big storm here last night, powerful winds. What can you do? Can you say stop? But it won't stop. We can try to protect ourselves against it. But wind is very powerful, but it's purifying also. So the mind is very hard, more difficult, Arjuna says, to control than the raging wind. Very powerful, powerful energy. So how to engage? We have, rather than, Krishna says, by practice and by detachment, one can conquer over the mind. But by engaging the mind, this is the secret, to engage our minds, to engage our senses in the service of the Lord. And Prabhupada has given us this wonderful process of devotional service. Some, of course, in neophyte stages, our mind may still be speculating as to what is best for us, what to do, not to do. I like this, I like that, I think this, I think that, and so on and so forth. It's part of growing up, but at least there's a connection there. It's related to Krishna, even though it may be my idea how to please Krishna or what I like to do to please Krishna. Naturally, there's going to be an element of that in the beginning, but ultimately is what does Krishna want? We only exist for his pleasure. We don't care for our own pleasure on the higher platform. We're practicing that. Practicing this is really to engage our senses for the pleasure of Krishna or in the service of his sense. He's the master of the senses. So offer our senses of mind to Krishna. They belong to him. They're his energies. And they should be utilized for his pleasure. Just like we have senses, we have arms and legs, they're meant for the service of the whole. They're meant for our service. If they don't serve us, it's rather uncomfortable. When our legs no longer work, it's very uncomfortable. And we may not be able to walk. Or if our voice falters, we can't speak. If our eyes fail, we can't see. Sometimes we have mental disturbances, always almost. Disturbing. Not comfortable. It's a diseased condition. So the material dis-at ease. The material is a diseased condition for living entity because everything is just not compatible. Temporary. We're searching for something, we can't keep it. We can't get the happiness we're looking for either. Oh, what a blissful sneeze. How much happiness I get from that sneeze. A little relief. Here Prabhupada describes material happiness. It's not really happiness at all. It's just a relief from an uncomfortable situation or a frustrating situation or a boring situation or whatever it is. Something which is not normal, not compatible to the soul. We're always looking for a relief of whatever, something or another. Spiritual life may be seen as a relief also from the entirety of material existence, but ultimately it's not exactly a relief, it's an awakening of our constitution, is our normal condition. Just like Prabhupada gives the example of somebody is standing on their foot for many, many years, we may become accustomed to the fact that they're standing on our foot. We accept it as kind of normal, although it's not normal and it's not really comfortable, but we've got used to it. We don't remember or don't know anything else. Maybe we were born with someone standing on our foot, hopefully not. But whatever it is, we get used to it and accept it as a norm. Then they take their foot off of our foot, and maybe a bit surprising at first, but then suddenly it's a great relief. We never realized that such a situation existed. There's no pressure on my foot anymore. But that's not the real business of the foot, just to be free of someone stepping on it. The real business of the foot is to be engaged in walking, or whatever it's meant to be doing. It has its particular activity. So similarly, the living entity, just to get relief from material suffering is one thing. And that may be for many people a wonderful achievement. You get Brahman realization or something. But that's not the ultimate purpose of the foot, just to be, free of suffering. The purpose of the foot is positive engagement to serve the whole. So the purpose of the soul, the fulfillment of the soul's existence, is not just to become free of material existence, is to exist in relationship with Krishna, engaged in loving reciprocation with Krishna. If Krishna is also thinking what will please the soul, what will please the jiva, and the jiva is thinking what will please Krishna. So in this way, loving exchange, both parties put the other's interest in the front, not behind mine. So this is transformation. This is our natural state, free of fear, free of suffering, free of stress, free of anxiety, free of depression, free of ignorance, and free of false ego, of course. Ego is not wrong. False ego is wrong. False ego keeps us bound up, away from Krishna, keeps us away from Krishna. Real ego means to know my relationship with Krishna, what's my real nature, spiritual nature. In material world, our nature is according to our karma. We acquire different natures, different forms with different natures, but that's not our eternal constitutional one. So the Vedic system or human society is to engage whatever our nature is, according to our karma, maybe desire, of course, behind that, to engage us in a way which gradually frees us from designation. That's the purpose of an ashram, for instance. The purpose divisions in society to engage according to one's nature, but in varnashram it's meant to be connected to the instructions of the Lord. The instructions of the Lord are another form of the Lord himself. So when we engage our capacity, our natural, materialistic speaking, karmic capacity in the service of the Lord under the proper system, then one can gradually become freed of these sarva upadi, these material designations. Sometimes people think, well, this is a material designation, Brahmin, Kshatriya. It is a material designation. Lord Chaitanya said, Naham viprona chanarapati napi vaishona shudro. Well, I am not a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudro, Brahmachari, Vyastavana, Prasto, Sannyasi. I'm none of these things. What am I? Gopi Bharta Pada Kamala Dasa Dasa Anadasa. Servant of the servant of the servant, the maid servants, gopis of Vrindavan. This is our ultimate position. We're not these designations in this world. However, as long as one is in a conditioned state, one has to engage according to one's nature in the service of the Lord, under the direction of the pure devotee of the Lord. And this will gradually free one step by step from designations. However, if we just act and think, I am a Kshatriya, and we forget our relation with Krishna, then we become more bound. We become more bound up in material illusion. To get free from that, everything has to be connected to Krishna as Krishna Surya's son. Maya Hayandakar is like the sun, and he removes the darkness of ignorance in his presence. And just like the sun cleanses dirty places, but does not get contaminated. So similarly, when we connect with Krishna, whatever dirty motivation is there, or materialistic motivation is there in our activities, is dissolved in the presence or evaporated in the presence of the Supreme Lord. By remembering him, by chanting the Maha Mantra, by trying to engage in devotional service. So this is all made possible, available by the grace of the pure devotees of the Lord who come into this world. They're not part of this world. They come into this world to try to awaken our consciousness of Krishna through various means. It may take roundabout means to do that through varnashram or through various piety activities or religious ritualistic activities and so on, roundabout ways of coming to our actual position of devotional service to Krishna and devotees. So they come into this world, or they reveal themselves in this world to give us this opportunity. Srila Prabhupada as giving us this opportunity to connect with Krishna. And he's giving us guidance, instructions also. The instructions of the spiritual master are our life force. We sing, many of you sing in the morning, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Ekya. May my consciousness be purified, my chitta be purified by the Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, the words emanating from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master. May my consciousness be purified. Just by hearing those words, one's consciousness becomes purified. So therefore, it's emphasized so much the importance of hearing from a pure devotee of the Lord. So powerful, so powerful. In that same song we sing, what's the last? Ha ha Prabhu Koladaya, Deyamori Padachaya, Evidas Kusha Tribhuva. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds, Evidas Kusha Tribhuvan. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. How that can be. How that means to say that may the opportunity or the mercy that the pure devotees bring be spread all over the three worlds. And practically speaking, how that can be most effectively evoked is through book distribution, because the book is non-different. I was participating, hearing, whatever you call it, in our session yesterday with the devotees in London. They're, the word I don't know, but they're, after they discuss, or they have a kind of a meeting to discuss the marathon, the book marathon, and different devotees are speaking there. One of the devotees is Kripamoya Prabhu, senior English devotee from the UK, was speaking some words to encourage, although he didn't personally go out on the marathon, maybe, I don't think he did. He's in New York at the moment. But he spoke some very encouraging words, and he was talking about the beginning of this book publication when ISKCON started in 1960s. In 68, 69, they established a printing press in Boston. Prabhupada wanted his books printed, so they had a printing press in Boston. I think called Hannon Press, I don't know, something like that. They had a printing press there. ISKCON Press was the name of the actual, you could say, publisher of the books then. And Prabhupada was very happy to see this printing press, very happy. And he said, this is my heart. This is my heart. No, he said, this is the heart of our movement. This is the heart of our movement. One devotee said, no, Prabhupada, you are the heart of our movement. Prabhupada said, but the printing press is my heart. So therefore, it's the heart of the movement. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, used to have the printing press in the temple room. One end the deities, the other end the printing press. He considered the printing press another form of deities. So important. One time, Prabhupada, when ISKCON was printing books in America, they were printing with Kingsport Press, which was one of the biggest presses in the world at that time. And the devotees, they print the Bibles, one of them big ones, millions at a time. And the devotees ordered, made an order with them, 1.5 million Bhagavad Gitas in one run. The press was shocked. They never heard anyone outside of the Bible printing so many in one run. This is the highest outside of the Bible, they said. So they did. And apparently Prabhupada offered his obeisances to the press. And why? Prabhupada said, this press is another form of Srila Vyasadeva. It appear a very unusual form, we could say, but it's a form of Srila Vyasadeva because he's churning out the absolute truth. As he spoke thousands and thousands of years ago, the absolute truth in the form of writing down the various Vedic literatures, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, eventually Srimad-Vedanta Sutra and Srimad-Bhagavatam, for the welfare of all living entities. And we are now basically connected a little bit through the fact that he compiled all these literatures, translated into various languages so that we can access it. And through the grace of our acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, who has made this available to the world, this message of Vyasa, which Vyasadeva recorded. They didn't have printing presses in those days. It's a great boon to have printing presses where you can print millions of books all at once. Incredible. So many books being printed all over the world, hundreds of millions of Bhagavad Gitas distributed all over the world, as it is. Right now, where good news is in France, is that our French Srimad-Bhagavatam, after 40 years of being out of print almost, is now on the printing press being printed. I don't take this very minute, but at this time, it's at the printing press getting printed, and we hope very soon to again have Srila Prabhupada's Srimad-Bhagavatam in print in French, which we hope will be a big, another big stepping stone towards Krishnizing France. Nothing wrong with whatever is around us, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta says. It's not that we have to change that. We just have to add Krishna consciousness to it. It has to be Krishnized. That includes our own consciousness. Sometimes we think we have to change the world. Well, we can say it like that in one sense, but not by the approach of let's say, from a material perspective. Change the government, change the policy, change this, change that, then it will be good. No, it won't be any better than before. It's still material. Brown material, green material, it's all the same in the big sense. So the real change is a change of consciousness. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, we can't change this world, not by the breadth of a hair. Everything's controlled by Krishna. The only change which has to be evoked is how we see the world. And that is evoked by exposing ourselves, he said, to the sound of Krishna Katha, the sound of the holy name, the sound of Bhagavat Katha. So now we're going to read a little bit from Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam being the cream of all Vedic literatures. If you, perhaps most of you have read the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, if not the whole Bhagavatam, at least the first canto, because in the first canto there's a chapter number 2. The second chapter is called Divinity and Divine Service. A very special chapter. And I remember when we go back to 1972, when these books were basically just coming out into print. And they'd already been printed in India, but now they're being printed in the West, and we were getting them. And we are very absorbed in this first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, especially chapter 2. We were on traveling book distribution, traveling Sankirtan party. And, every day we would read this chapter and study it and learn the verses, and every day taking in turns to give class on the verses. Absorb it. This second chapter, sometimes it is described. Obviously, everything is there actually in the first volume of the Bhagavatam that we need to know. And this second chapter particularly, because it is the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, is primarily the questions of the sages to Sutta Goswami. They're inquiring from him. They are very concerned about the situation of conditioned souls in Kali Yuga. So they're making relevant inquiries as to both ascertaining the problem and the solution for this age, which is now dawning, you could say 5,000 years ago. Their endeavors to bring about auspiciousness through fire yajnas and sacrifices of that kind were failing. And then only when they took to the process of inquiring from Sutta Goswami was there a solution to their problems. As similarly, when Maharaj Parikshit was given 7 days to live in that particular body, he went to the bank of the Ganges, and there assembled many great sages around him. And he was inquiring, what is the purpose of life? How do we solve the problems? What is the goal? What should we be thinking, etc. But no one was able to satisfy him until Sukadeva Goswami came on the scene. Arrangement, even Vyasadeva was there. Still, nobody was satisfied. Sukadeva Goswami came, Vyasadeva was in Naimishranya when Sutta came. But only when Krishna's arrangement, Sukadeva Goswami came, Maharaj Parikshit inquired and was fully satisfied. So Sutta Goswami was also there when Maharaj Parikshit was sitting there on the bank of the Ganges, and Sutta Goswami heard Sukadeva Goswami speak. So Sutta then went to Naimishranya at some later date and spoke to the sages who were performing yajna there in Naimishranya forest. And that's what we're reading in Srimad-Bhagavatam, is the account basically of the conversation between in Naimishranya between Sutta Goswami and the sages. So the sages headed by Shonaka Rishi had already asked many wonderful, wonderful questions, and we're going to take it up from there. And you can share screen or you can look in your book. This is text number 5 onwards from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service. Munaya Sataprishtam Bhavabir Lokmangalam Yad Krita Krishna Samprashno Yenatma Suprasidati. Beautiful response here. A beautiful reply. This is basically the first speaking of Sutta Goswami. O sages, he said, O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. An amazing verse, a translation by Prabhupada of the words of Sutta Goswami. Here you can see it on the screen now. It's being shared by Rasikananda Prabhu. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. People probably Prabhupada's purport. As it is stated herein before, in the Bhagavatam, the absolute truth is to be known. So the questions of the sages of Naimishranya are proper and just because they pertain to Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita, the Personality of Godhead says that in all the Vedas, there is nothing but the urge for searching after him, Lord Krishna. It may be directly or it may be indirectly, but the Vedic literatures are ultimately aimed. They're ultimately aimed at knowing Krishna. That's their purpose. Although they may seemingly emphasize so many other aspects of the absolute truth, but the ultimate goal is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, is to understand that Krishna is the supreme source of everything. Everything is meant ultimately to know Krishna or to connect with Krishna, who's the goal of the Vedas. The goal of everything is Krishna. So this is Sarvasya we just mentioned a quote here. Thus the questions that pertain to Krishna are the sum and substance of all Vedic inquiries. Most people probably then goes on to say the whole world is full of questions and answers. It's not difficult to agree with that one. People are asking questions about what are the latest rules on COVID, for instance. It's a very common question these days. Can I go to the restaurant? Can I get on the train? Can I go to some country or another? And what do I do? And so on and so forth. What we can do and what we can't do. And so many restrictions are there. And people are asking questions because those questions are relevant to their present state of consciousness. Ultimately, they're not necessary. They're anartha pasamam shakshad bhakti yoga hochide ohitagib. They are not relevant. They're irrelevant to the soul. All these questions and answers of this world are really like questions and answers in a dream. They're not really significant when we wake up. We may have some memory of them, but they don't have any generally speaking, maybe some exceptions, but generally no significant relevance to our waking condition. So like that, the living entity is asking questions. Where do I get this? What is this? How is that? Who did this? And so on and so forth. What's the time? Which way do I go? Where is so-and-so? Unending questions. What's going on over there? What happened over there 50 years ago? We're inquisitive. People like to know what is going on. They're always asking questions like this. The birds, the beasts, and men are all busy in the matter of perpetual questions and answers. They're also asking their questions. You know, where can we get good worms? Where can you get good worms? Where are the worms? Where are the good worms? Where are there some good fruits? Where there's some nice trees where we can make a nest. Whatever it is. So important things to the birds. And in the evening also, the same birds come back and again become busy with questions and answers. The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, I'm going to sleep, is busy with questions and answers. The human being, the businessman in the market are busy with questions and answers. And so also are the lawyers in the court, and the students in the schools and colleges. The legislators in the parliament are also busy with questions and answers. And the politicians and the press representatives are all busy with questions and answers. Although they go on making such questions and answers for their whole lives, they are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the subject of Krishna. Krishna is our most intimate master, friend, father, or son, an object of conjugal love. No matter what our constitutional position is, Krishna is in the center. Forgetting Krishna, we have created so many objects of questions and answers. The nature of the soul to how can we please Krishna? What would Krishna like? How can I cook something nice for Krishna? How can I dress Krishna more beautifully? How can I distribute more of Krishna's books? How can I grow more nice vegetables for Krishna? How can I, whatever it is, hear more about Krishna? How can I collect funds which belong to Krishna to use in Krishna's service? Always thinking how to please Krishna, how to please Krishna. That's the questions and answers that devotees may be asking some philosophical questions. Maybe from the Shastras. Maybe questions, how I can remove my doubts. Questions, how I can distribute more books. How I can go to India. Now devotees may be thinking, with the COVID, how can I go to India? Because going to India is not spiritual. But if we're going thinking, I want to go to Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur Dham. Why? Because there I can associate with devotees. I can hear and chant, remember Krishna, because we can do that anywhere, pretty much. I mean, maybe not to the same vivid degree, but it's everywhere possible, all over the world. By the grace of Prabhupada, he's made everywhere available to perform devotional service and transform that place into a dham or a holy place of pilgrimage. But still there's a special effect. So there was thinking how I can go, I haven't got the COVID pass, or you're not allowed to can't get the visa, can't get back in if I go there. So many questions. What are the rules? You know, it's a lot of time spent now in finding out what's going on. Things we took for granted before, now you have to work hard to achieve. All things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if we are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without being questioned. without being questioned or without giving answers. Because the Srimad-Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna, we can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing the transcendental literature. One should learn the Srimad-Bhagavatam and make an all-around solution to all problems pertaining to social, political, or religious matters. This is the solution to all problems. Regular hearing of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada would even describe, even in Parliament, they should have, before the session begins, they should have reading of Bhagavatam and something in the morning. First thing, kirtan, and then readings from Bhagavatam before the parliamentary assembly. Can you imagine such a thing happening even in India? It would be a shock. And the same thing before any legal assembly in the court, they should have. The only place I know, I mean, there are surely more, but when I visited the Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Mumbai some years back, they do that every morning. They have an assembly with kirtan, puja, readings before they start the day in the hospital. There's devotees, mostly devotees, and the doctors in the hospital mostly. Srimad-Bhagavatam and Krishna are the sum total of all things. What need is there of anything else? Krishnanam Shudakoyopan Jurayo Bhakati Vinodapran Nama Vinakichu Naiko Ara Choda Bhuvanamaje. Bhakti Vinod Thakur singing how the holy name of Krishna. There's nothing to be had in all the 14 worlds. It completely satisfying the soul of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. The holy name of Krishna. Chanting the holy names. You know, somehow or another, we have to remember this, that we may be chanting Maha Mantra, whatever state of consciousness we're in, that's another thing. But even the fact is, after so many years, we're still doing maybe not even as well as we did before, not even as attentively, maybe more offensively than before. We have to increase our chanting, not decrease or keep it the same. It's like the sun. If you don't move, the sun will set on the horizon. You have to stay in the sun. And in devotional service, there should be some increase. It's like we have tried to increase the book distribution every year. And the whole of our movement has gone through ups and downs for various reasons, but the principle is to try to keep increasing the service, increasing the chanting. To be satisfied just after 50 years of 16 rounds is also very good, but it should be increasing. Then maybe there will be some effect on our consciousness. If you're growing up and you're still doing the same thing as you were when you were younger, then it's not a very progressive sign. You expect to be maturing, developing in various ways, capacity increasing also. So more chanting, more hearing, Srimad-Bhagavatam, more hearing. Let's move on to text number 6. Sarvai pungsang paro dharma yato bhaktir hokshaji ahoitaki yapatyata yinatma supasidati. Famous verse. Prabhupada's translation and purport. The supreme occupation, dharma. And dharma, as most people's minds, means religion. The term of religion is not really applicable. It's a supreme occupation. Dharma meaning occupation. The supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Occupation where men can attain to activities which bring us to that platform of loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated, uninterrupted, in order to completely satisfy the self. Uninterrupted means no break. This is the basic meaning, devotional service, anu sankirtanam. Without any break, continuous. Such devotional service must be constant, continuous, no break. Not that, oh, now, okay, I've done my day service, I deserve a break. No, I watch the TV, watch a movie or something crazy like that. No break, because one is totally absorbed in devotional service. There's no question of thinking of anything else, what to speak of doing anything else. And also unmotivated, that means without any material motivation. No, not thinking, what will I get out of this? What reward will I get? Name, fame, prestige, some possession or some reward of some kind. Or maybe I'm thinking, I want relief. If I do service, I'll get relief. Maybe, but that's not the goal. That's still a mundane relationship with the holy name or devotional service. So in this way, otherwise it won't satisfy the self. We may get some relief for a while, but then we'll be, otherwise we'll be depressed or frustrated or greedy, lusty or something or another. Again, we're not fully satisfied. We're still hankering after something. Prabhupada writes in the purport, in this statement, Sri Suta Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that fallen people or the people in general might easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called the pravritti marg, or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called the nivritti marg, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior, but the path of sacrifice for the supreme cause is superior. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence, or Brahmabhuta existence. That means on the spiritual platform. Actual life is spiritual existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of misery. Complete opposite. There is no happiness at all. There is just a futile attempt to get rid of the miseries, and temporary cessation of misery is falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service of the Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called the superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior occupation. It becomes mixed. This is sometimes, for example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service of the Lord must be pure in quality, i.e., without the least desire for material enjoyment. Of course, the most famous verse in the Nectar of Devotion, Anyabilasita Shunyam Jnana Kamajanabatam Anukulyena Krishnanushilnam. Famous verse, freed of all desire for material return, free of desire for liberation, free of desire for attaining mystic powers or anything other than Krishna, free of everything else. And what is Anukulyena, is service which brings pleasure to Krishna. Anukulyena, Krishna, Anushilanam. We must cultivate Shilanam, cultivate Krishna, Anushilanam. Anu means constant, or it means following in the footsteps. Activities, cultivate a practice of devotional service which is pleasing to Krishna by following in the footsteps of the great devotees of Krishna and engage constantly in this way. This is really Bhakti Yoga. It's not just a thing we do when we feel like it, but it means we're actually connected with Krishna Bhakti. This is the constitutional nature of the soul. Bhakti is awoken in the presence of Bhakti. When we're in the presence of unadulterated, pure devotional service, it can awaken within us. In the presence of those who are living examples of this. Therefore, they come into this world and they remain. They leave, Prabhupada said, they leave the boat for us to get on board. Even if they don't themselves appear to be present, they are present in the form of that transcendental boat to carry us across the ocean. That boat is in the form, in this case, we're talking of Srila Prabhupada's book marathon, in the form of these transcendental literatures, particularly. Other ways too, but that's the most prominent presence of Srila Prabhupada today. If we want to glorify Srila Prabhupada all over the three worlds, may your fame be spread, we sing every morning. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. This means may your books be distributed every single corner of the universe. This is how the fame is spread all over the three worlds. Distributing these transcendental literatures. Every home, Prabhupada said, should have a set of these books. We have a few homes. Even our own home may not have a full set. So what to speak of others' homes? Most of you are living at home. Unless you really want to make one's home spiritual abode, tirtha, we have to invite the pure devotee to reside there. Of course, it's better if we listen to him as well, but at least we have to have him there in the first place. Invite Prabhupada into our homes by getting all of Prabhupada's books. You can get the conversations and the lectures too if you really want to go there, if you can. You may not be in a position to do so, but at least the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the other Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, all the other books, which Prabhupada has given us, showered the world with these transcendental topics related to Krishna. So we should at least keep them in our homes, protection, look after them nicely. The best way to look after them is to read them regularly, share them with others. Abhijash-gusha, we try to spread this throughout the three worlds, this knowledge, this subject matter. We're trying to bring Krishna everywhere. He is everywhere, but he's not revealing himself. So in this way, he reveals himself to the conditioned souls and to the aspiring devotees. Where are we now? Let's see. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction. I think we read that. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. We may get a little pleasure, that itch, but it just burns. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, this lust burns like fire. The more we feed it, the more it burns. Maybe immediately it's a relief, it goes down, but then it burns up again even more than before. Never ending. And bondage in this world of lust, due to lust. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of devotional service of the Lord without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive activity, and philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. Satisfaction, completely at home in one's service, when there's no ulterior motive, when sheltered at the lotus feet of Krishna. We have purposely denoted dharma as occupation because the root meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains one's existence. That's the root meaning. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all-attractive living entity or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served, and it is transcendental and is completely distinguished from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental, loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence, that will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. So if you can't get no satisfaction in this material world, then this is the secret. Engage in unalloyed devotional service. All purposes, Yavan Arta Udapane Sarvataksam Platodake, Krishna says to Arjuna, all purposes that are served by a small pond are ultimately available in the great reservoir of water. Similarly, one who knows the purpose behind the Vedas is the knower of the whole Vedas. You don't need to make a separate endeavor to study. The goal of the Vedas is Krishna. So one will only, let's say, be interested in hearing those subject matters of glorifying Krishna, enhancing one's relationship with Krishna, removing any obstacles in our relationship with Krishna, inspiring others to become connected or reconnected with Krishna. I don't want to hear subject matter to increase material economic development or material sense gratification or even liberation. The mundane, religious, ritualistic subject matters, karma, kandya. The devotee is not interested in all of this. Because of social commitments or family commitments, sometimes we may have to be kind of engaged in some of these things, but we have no interest in it per se. Our only interest is to hear and chant and glory. Tasmat or Tasmat Kali. How's it go? Tasmat. There's a few verses on it. I forgot. Beautiful verse. Here it is. Text 14. Tasmat ekanamansa bhagavan satvatam pati shotavya kititavyascha dhyaya pujascha nityada. Therefore, Sutta says, with one pointed attention, one must constantly hear about, constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is their protector. And this is where we get our protection from, to be constantly hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping the personality of Godhead. Then we'll be protected from the influences of the illusory energy, to become again attracted to the objects of the senses. We have to become attracted to Krishna by hearing and chanting, worshiping, remembering him, and so on. Hare Krishna. Well, I'm going to finish there. And if there's any questions or comments, please share them with us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're waiting for some question, if there is any. Please type your questions in or something like that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you don't hear me, you'll be lost. So let us hear Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It'd be nice if we could actually hear the sound of Krishna's name. Not just the sound of Krishna's name, it's the sound of Krishna. I remember there used to be a song, a popular song, maybe in the 60s, the sound of silence. That was one, the sound of silence. But there's no, it's the sound of silence. It's just a relief from all the other sounds. But the sound of Krishna is the real vibration that should be there, vibration of the soul, the sound of Krishna, universal. Huh? Something has appeared. How to develop more taste in chanting? Oh, good question. Well, Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said we develop a taste from for chant. Of course, there's different answers there. By chanting more, that's one answer. We're not chanting enough. You have to chant more. Chanting in the association of those who have a taste. There are different answers to this. And specifically, he gives a very practical answer. And that is the taste is developed by serving the devotees, by rendering menial service to the Vaishnavas. The taste comes with bhakti, as Lord Chaitanya says in Sikshastakam, because of offenses, we have no taste. So chanting without offenses is another aspect. And by mercy of the Lord, that taste will be awoken by his mercy. And he gives his mercy if we serve his devotees, serving others, trying to please the devotees. Krishna is then very pleased, and he gives us a taste of the nectar for which we're always hankering. So chant more, try to spread the glories of the holy name, try to spread the holy name to others. We don't preach the glories to the faithless, but at least we distribute the holy name by trying to share it with others. Krishna reciprocates, he's very pleased with us. And try to chant in the association of devotees, and like that, serve the devotees. And by the grace of Krishna, when the taste will awaken. It's a natural taste, but because our senses are so polluted, we can hear from Rupa Goswami also on this. In the Pradeshamrita, just like a jaundiced person has no taste for sugar, tastes bitter. It's not that sugar is bitter, but because the disease condition makes everything taste bitter. Similarly, one who is diseased by ignorance and the taste of the holy name, there's no sweet taste there, it has no real taste. At best, it's mechanical. Kindvadaradhanudinam, Rupa Goswami says, therefore one should carefully, very carefully and regularly, attentively, constantly hear and chant. Keep chanting, but try to be very careful when we chant. Krishna is present, but we're not present. This is the problem. We're somewhere else. So if we become a little more present, then naturally we're going to experience the effect of Krishna's presence. As we get heat from when we sit close to a fire, light when we're close to a light. Similarly, when we're close to Krishna, we'll feel the sweetness of Krishna's presence. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Try to hear the sound. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama, Rama. Hare Hare. This is another one from New Zealand. Oh, wow, thank you very much. Oh, first time to see some wonderful devotees in New Zealand. The first time they're taking part in the marathon, did over 100 books on their first marathon. Fantastic. That's really inspiring. Thank you so much for that one. That's marvelous. And another one devotee, perhaps, I don't know if before, they distributed 11 Bhagavad Gitas. This is in Sydney in 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks. Fantastic. Absolutely marvelous. Just imagine if we were all distributing, if every devotee, I don't know how many devotees there are, how you define it, I do not know. We had a nice experience this year, and again, we're not saying that this is necessarily the precedent for everywhere, but the situation in France being what it is, we have many devotees who've taken shelter in the Gaudiya Mass, and many of those devotees joined us to distribute Prabhupada's books this year. In fact, in the top 10, I think 2 of those devotees were in the top 10 book distributors. Unity, Prabhupada one, unity and diversity. We all have our bits to play. We can all play the same tune, and it brings a unity amongst us, because ultimately we're all meant to be devotees or servants of devotees. So yes, it's a very nice thing there, bringing unity. And let's say altogether, including all the congregational members who are related to it, let's just say for the sake of it, 1 million. That may be a bit of an exaggeration, but maybe not. In India, there are so many devotees in ISKCON, I don't know. But let's just say, if each one of those 1 million devotees were to distribute 11 Bhagavad Gitas then in the marathon, how many Bhagavad Gitas would that be? Now, has anyone got a computer with them to calculate 11 times a million? That's a very difficult calculation. Anyone know what it comes to? Oh, very good. 11 million. 11 times a million. 11 million Bhagavad Gitas. That's a lot of books, isn't it? And that's just 11. That's 1/3 of a book a day. Don't cut them in thirds, but it's the equivalent of 1/3 of a book a day. It's not that much. Not that difficult to distribute 11 books in a month. I'm sure we can do it. Somehow or another, Prabhupada said we have to rack our brains to think of ways how to spread these transcendental literatures. So that'd be quite a marathon, wouldn't it? 11 million books. Whew. I don't know what we did this year worldwide, but that's just if everyone does 11 books. What to speak if you do 100? I mean, one devotee just now, Mahotsaha, you may have heard, he's a book distributor in America. He's Indian-bodied, brahmachari, and he's staying based in Atlanta, in Georgia, in the USA. I know him a little bit, quite well. And he just broke the record for book distribution a few weeks ago. In one day, he distributed, what was it, 1,180 Maha Big Books or something in one day. And now he's broken it again. He just broke it again a few days ago. What was it, 1,500? 1,500 big books in one day. Can you imagine 1,500 books in one day? Huh?
It's just one person.
One person? Incredible. Incredible. 1,500 books in one day. Shoot, big books. And that's on the street. It's not like he delivered them to a factory or something. He distributed them personally. I mean, he's selling sets of Bhagavatams. He sold a set of Bhagavatams and a set of CCs when he was just the other day, they're taking a break at the beach. He sold it at the beach to a guy at the beach who never heard of Krishna before. It's just phenomenal. It's called empowerment. Empowerment. We tuned in yesterday to the London Yatra, who were having their annual, as I mentioned earlier, annual Sankirtan, their December marathon meeting, summing it all up. And there's those in Cardiff, Wales, South Wales. They were averaging 150 Gitas each a day during the marathon. 150 Gitas a day each, average for the top 3 or 4 like that. It's incredible. We can hardly imagine being able to do that physically. It's like amazing. I mean, it's one every few minutes goes out. Well, what to speak of 1,500 in a day? I mean, if you do 10 hours, that's 150 books an hour. That's per minute. That's like almost 3 books a minute. Who can do that? It's amazing. Maybe we can't do, but at least we can do something to add to this great wave, this wave of book distribution, to take the glories of the pure devotee to everywhere in the universe, distributing books. Those books will go all over the place, every nook and corner of the world. Let's see, does reading the 11th canto have the same value as reading Srila Prabhupada's purports and translations? It was Prabhupada's desire to translate the entire 12 cantos of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It was his desire. He left it, as Prabhupada said, he left the task of spreading Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur could have done the whole thing himself. He left it to us. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada, for what reasons, left this continuation of the Srimad Bhagavatam to his disciples to complete the 11th and 12th canto. And I'm personally, of my own personal, if it's for what it's worth on this, Prabhupada is extremely pleased that this 11th and 12th canto have been made available and are there for devotees to hear. The 11th canto is so important. We do have some games on the floor there. Can you keep a little quiet, please? It is so important, the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Without a deep study of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, my personal experience, the 10th canto doesn't really come alive. It is alive, and you can read any word of Prabhupada and be fully alive, but we're not alive. We read like, some either speculative or half asleep or inattentive or whatever it may be, with some other ulterior motive. To remove all the ulterior motives or the false concepts or false perceptions, the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. Prabhupada quoted from it again and again, and the 12th canto, the same thing. These are the words of Shukadev Goswami. These are the words of the Lord, glorifying the Lord, and they should be studied. And if we study in the light of gratefulness and thankfulness to Srila Prabhupada for giving us these 11th and 12th cantos, which he has through various medias, then you will get all effect as much as any other canto. And to think that they're inferior or whatever it may be, that's one's own choice. Many devotees don't go beyond the 10th canto. And I feel, having read the 11th and 12th, I feel sorry that we don't go beyond the 10th canto, or the first part of the 10th canto. We simply hanker for more and more. But it's very important to hear the 11th and 12th canto also. We may not be able to realize everything. We may not be so advanced. We may not even reach the lotus toes of the Lord yet. But ultimately, yes, 11th canto must be read. But we have to go through it step by step by step by step. And to read it is one thing, to realize it is another, but we still have to read it. And it depends on our attitude. If we have this attitude, it's inferior. It's like going on Sankirtan. If you think people don't like us, they won't like us. If you think these people won't take books, they won't take books. Krishna reciprocates because they may have their own free will, but that's the general spirit. Krishna will send along people who don't want it because you're feeling like that. It's our concept which we have. We have this concept is inferior. It's written by inferior personalities. That's their own problem. That's their own problem. So we have to make that choice. Let's see what's next. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Here's another one. Is it okay if the mind wanders and is making plans of various sevas while chanting? Is that still inattentive chanting? It's not, this is another stage. It's certainly better than thinking of the material world. When one's thinking of one's own service, it happens very regularly. Even Prabhupada said that because of so many anxieties he had to take on in trying to spread Krishna conscious movement. Even he said to one devotee, yes, it's very hard to be attentive to chant the holy names. But it is related to Krishna. It's in relationship with Krishna. It's part of that service, as Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Devotion. Those who haven't actually awoken a genuine spirit of attraction for the holy name, then they must be engaged practically in devotional service. So this is on the subtle platform, but it's not that therefore should become the norm. It may be the pressing, let's say, experience, but it's not our ultimate norm. But it is certainly, and you could say in that sense, related to Krishna. So it's not exactly offensive. When we talk about the 10 offenses, generally speaking, inattentiveness is not inclusive. It's indirectly there, but it's not generally included. It is attentive chanting, which actually brings us from offensive chanting to pure chanting. It's the go-between. As long as we're consciously inattentive, we're consciously, whatever form it may take, then definitely we're going to, the maintenance or the continuation of offensiveness will be there. So the effort to be attentive. So there's nothing directly offensive if we're thinking of our service while we're chanting, in one sense. We're not attached to material things. We're not offending the Vaishnavas. We're not misinterpreting. We're not engaged in sinful activities on the strength. We're not preaching to the faithless. We're not disobeying. We may be disobeying the spiritual master's order to a certain extent by not being fully attentive or trying to hear the sound of the holy name. But we should work towards that, to try to hear the sound of the holy name. But in the meantime, as we're not on that level, we don't have that love for Krishna, we haven't realized the non-difference that Krishna and the name are the same. We haven't come to that platform of realizing we're in the personal association. It's like sometimes you have an experience. Huh? You have someone you really love, and you're always thinking of maybe how I can actually get to be with them. You're not with them. But when you're with them, you're not thinking of how I can be with them. We're not thinking of anything but you were just with them. That's the fulfillment of all one's efforts. So when we come to a more advanced stage in chanting, then we realize we're actually with Krishna rather than Krishna. We're actually in their presence. But up to then, maybe thinking how I can get to that, how I can do this. And there are many different, and even our acharyas do recommend, even Prabhupada recommended that there's several letters where Prabhupada says, yes, it's okay to think of Govardhan Hill or to think of the holy Dham, or various aspects like that whilst chanting the holy name. The remarkable thing is, and in that case particularly, one can actually be chanting the holy name attentively and also be in a mood of experiencing the presence of Giri Govardhan, or the presence of whatever it may be, Shamakund, Radhakund, or Jamuna River, the Vaishnavas, and so on. So it's a stage, but we shouldn't be content to stay on that stage and make that the absolute standard of the norm, but it's certainly far, far better than thinking of going into just a mindless state or a state of mundane thoughts, etc. Srila Prabhupada said that the spiritual world, there's no difference between subject and object. Subject and object. Well, it's the same thing, like in a sense, simultaneously one and different. There appears to be a difference there, but there's a unity in love. They're all on the same quality, spiritual quality. There is no mixture. Everyone is playing their part, perfect part, in harmony with the whole. That's like in our body, every cell is playing its part. In one sense, it's the part of the body, but it has its own unique individuality. There is no ulterior, there's no separate motivation involved. No separate motivation. So the subject matter, the name, as we're talking about the name in the material world, we see that the name and the object are not exactly the same. It's related, but it's not the same. It describes it, but it's not the same. There's a difference between the description and that which is described. In the spiritual world, There is no absolute difference. The Lord is fully present in the Course. Those of us who are on the material platform, to understand the Lord through sound vibration is not so logically easy. It's not so easy to grasp. But this is the fact for those who are on a high platform, spiritual, realized platform, when the sound is the Lord, is the form of the Lord. It's all non-different there. But from the relative perspective, as long as we're seeing from relativity, this subject matter will be a little difficult to grasp. It's not on the same, it's not affected in any way by the modes of nature or the time or any of the controlling forces of this world. It is based upon simple purity. Everything is absolutely pure and is enriched with Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, with love, pure love. So there's nothing else but pure loving exchange. Everything is for the same purpose. The purpose is to increase or enhance the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They come in kind of random, and they don't come one after the other here. You've got to go back and forward. Okay, I think we're finished there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all very, very much for your time. We wish you a great new year, a great 2022 in devotional service. We don't know materially what will come our way, but at least we know one thing, that there's only one most important thing which we have to try to bring more and more into our lives, is hearing and chanting about Krishna under the shelter of the pure devotees who are bringing pleasure to Krishna through their hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We also realize that everything comes from Krishna. Everything expands from Krishna for his pleasure. So that which expands is also non-different than Krishna. It's simply for the purpose of increasing rasa or loving relationship. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. That way, Srila Prabhupada said, actually, everything is Krishna. You just have to realize it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinama Sankirtan ki jai. Brihat Madanga ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. So Hare Krishna, we'll see you all soon through hearing. Please keep chanting the holy names and be happy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari 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 Bol. Wherever you are, Hari Bol everywhere. Jai, may the whole world be drowned in the tsunami of Nam Sankirtan. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Hari Bol.